Today we are going to weave a fruit vase. As long ago as the tutorial on a woven handle with shifting was short, we got an email with a request to shoot a tutorial on how to weave a fruit vase. It is only today we are satisfying this request. I'm sure experienced weavers will cope with the task easily. As for the beginners, I'm going to tell and show them step by step how to make this item. In addition to step-by-step weaving, I'm going to show you one more variety of a handle. Besides, there are a few nuances I've opened for myself recently, and I'm going to share them with you. So I hope that experienced weavers are likely to find something interesting for themselves in my tutorial as well. As for weaving techniques, I've mostly used a rope-style weaving. Because this type of weaving is rather dense, it is easy to weave a tray using this technique. That's why weaving techniques used are not varied a lot. As for the materials used in the process of weaving, there are a cardboard tube, a former base for foil or some construction materials, as for me personally, I'm using the one construction mesh used to be rolled over. If you haven't got any construction materials at home, a domestic thing like this can be used as well. Besides, I've used a bowl like this as a base for a stand. And as usual, paper tubes, glue and scissors. In spite of all the critical comments of evil wishes, I continue demonstrating my first weaving experiments. First experiments are not always successful. Well, weaving techniques are as a rule okay. As for experiments with shape, I usually succeed with them in the long run, but the first attempts are usually a failure. My first fruit vase was this ugly. I've realized that the shape was far from perfect, so I made the second one. I haven't got it anymore. This is the third one. I'm quite satisfied with the shape of it. The shape like this is much better. It looks nice and is more spacious, and it is easier to take fruit out of it when the trays are flat, not deep like balls. At least I prefer the ones like these, both from aesthetic and practical point of view. So start weaving from a regular round bottom. Don't bother yourself about the way the center looks, it is going to be hidden from both sides anyway. I've taken 12 long tubes for the beginning, and I'm weaving a regular round bottom like I usually do. I'm planning this fruit vase two-colored, that's why I'm using tubes of two colors, dark and light. So the first stage is the lowest tray, a large round bottom. Let me show you the way I change the tubes. Look, I've woven with light tubes for a while, then with dark ones. Then I've tried the bowl used as a base on. The trunk of a fruit vase is going to be dark, that's why I've woven 6 rows dark. Then I'm gradually changing the color. I've changed one of the tubes for light, woven 3 rows, now I'm going to pass on to light tubes. Here is the point of changing. I believe it must be especially interesting for beginners. Lately I've been doing like this. I cut a very sharp angle. Moreover, I cut a tube in the point where it has been glued. As a rule, there is a light or vice versa a dirty spot here. It is the easiest point to cut and to lengthen. So I cut a tube at a very sharp angle in this hard point. And one more point I haven't paid attention to earlier. Then I've taken a thorough look at the works of other weavers. Thanks to all of you who share your experience. I used to just put a tube on like this. Lately I've started cutting this ragged end. As a result, the point of lengthening is almost invisible. That is the secret, that is the point. Sorry, I have distracted my attention by talking. I had to change the tube for the light one. Now I take my time to cut a tube's end every time, and I like the result much more. It is much neater. And continue with light tubes. Look, it often looks untidy when this tail with the coils located next to each other are involved in weaving. You can easily tell that it is not osier. So you'd better cut this tail. Oops, I've cut it in the wrong point. I had to cut here, in the hardest point. And cut at a sharp angle. Look, you still can see the joint from the wrong side, but not as clearly as it used to be seen. There are no more ragged ends, only accurate joint. And continue weaving. I have to weave a 28-30 centimeters diameter tray, which is about 11-12 inches. I'm planning this size. It is too small yet. Let me draw your attention to the materials the items are made of. These are the same thin tubes made of newspaper. They are white because they are made of newspaper edges. This article was made quite long ago, so I didn't pay much attention to the edges. Anyway, what I'd like to draw your attention to is that the tubes are thin and made of newspaper. This item has been made of office paper. It was too difficult. Weaving a huge box of office paper is rather convenient. As for the articles like this, even though they are rather big, it is not very convenient. Because the article is full of bands and the edges would look neater if made of newspaper tubes. Well, actually I've coped with the task, but this item looks rougher, even though I've moistened the tubes. That's why I've taken thin tubes like these for the tutorial. This was what concerns materials used. Now let me add a couple more words on the way I lengthened the tubes. Earlier it used to be my least favorite moment. But then at Strana-Masterov website, I will share the link, the weaver advised to just adjoin the tubes like this and twine them round. As for me, I like putting additional tubes from underneath even better. Why? Because I fail making it absolutely invisible. That's why I add tubes from beneath. Well, there is some relief from the wrong side, but it doesn't matter. After you've woven 2 or 3 rows, it gets fixed thoroughly enough. Anyway, I usually cut the tails when I finish. Thanks again for the idea, it has made the process much easier for me. I adjoin dry tubes from another portion. Just adjoin a tube like this and twine it round. Continue this way. You may take all the excessive things from the desk. By the second-third row everything is fixed thoroughly enough. You don't have to insert any needles. I've hurried a little. And continue this way up to the end of the row. So, 12 inches have been woven. It looks like this from the wrong side. Now hide the tube's tail. There used to be two working tubes. One of them was too short. I hide the second one in a regular way. I hide the tail from the wrong side to avoid any defects on the front side. You may cut all the excessive tails already with no fear. Now you may just cut the tails, but an article looks nicer with a trimmed edge. You'd better choose the simplest way of edge making, because there is no point in lengthening the tubes while the tails left are rather short. I've chosen the edging like this. Onto one, under the second, onto the third tube. Onto one, under the second, onto the third tube, and insert. Pull a little, it is a bit short. Continue. Onto one, under the second, onto the third tube, and hide the tail. Onto one, under the second, onto the third tube, and hide. You may turn it like this. Onto one, under the second, onto the third tube. Look, here I've cut the tubes I've added and the tails left after trimming the edge. Now I'm preparing the tubes for weaving a stand over the fruit vase. I just lead a knitting needle through and insert the tubes. One, and from the opposite side at about the same interval. This way I'm preparing the poles for making a stand. Here is the front side and here is the wrong one. I weave a couple of rows and put a bowl inside. I'd like a stand of a fruit vase to be A-shaped in order to make it stable, because my own experience has shown that a small stand like this is not stable enough. It is what I've talked about. If you lose, don't lose the lesson. So I've tried a stand like this and failed, and understood that I have to make it wider. That's why I found this bowl and I'm going to weave around it. Actually, the stand is going to be as high as the bowl is. I mean, I'm going to weave up to the edge of the bowl and it is going to be the height of the stand. As well, I'd like to draw attention to the fact that the way I've lengthened the tubes makes some relief. Look, the front side almost lacks relief. From the opposite side, this relief is more visible. That's why I join tubes from beneath, not from above. So start weaving a stand using the rope technique. I straighten the tubes in the first row. Afterwards I will shape the stand. It is better to bend the tubes at once in order to place the bowl easier. So I've finished weaving the stand, hidden the working tubes inside. It is rather hard to insert the tubes with the article positioned like this. It's inconvenient to lead a knitting needle through. That's why I just cover the edge with glue and cut the tails. I spread 6 cool glue thoroughly so the tubes are sure to be fixed well. That's all, the stand has been woven. Since the glue is thick enough, it is going to fix the tubes well and they are not going to slide out. Cut the poles accurately. The next stage is weaving a trunk. The stand has been woven, so now our task is weaving a trunk of our fruit tree. I'd like these chieftains we've got while making a stand to be hidden inside. So I indent one row and lead the tubes through with the help of a thin knitting needle. I put a tube onto a needle and insert it here like this and next to it. It would be too difficult to insert the tubes without the help of a knitting needle because of the slope. So, we've got such poles for a trunk. Actually, you may do without these chieftains. I've done with the one of my fruit platters. I was just leading the tubes through and weaving a stand at first. But while weaving it, the tails sticking downward were getting wrecked. So I've decided to insert the tubes and get the pairs of tubes for a stand at first. Then I make pairs of tubes, each pair of 1 tube for a trunk. Well, if your tubes are strong and flexible enough, you can just stick them through the bottom like this and weave a stand at first and then a trunk on the same poles. It is up to you to choose. Then we continue in a regular rope technique. Here is a base for a trunk. One more point. I start weaving, and for it to be narrowing smoothly, you may use sticks if you don't rely on your eye. These are barbecue skewers for a smooth trunk. Continue weaving, straightening the base and bending the sticks together with the paper tubes towards the base at an equal angle. In this case, you may be sure that the trunk will be smooth.